Okay, so we are all set. My name is Kaylin. I am a CESA literacy tutor, and today, as you can see, we are going to be learning about analyzing themes. So this would cover finding themes in any kind of passage that you read, or it could also be, finding a theme or like the context in like a graph that you might be able to need for like a test that you'd be taking. So we're going to kind of go over just some basics of trying to strategies of finding themes, and then we're going to go ahead and use some examples. So, okay, cool. So right here, to start off, a theme in literature is essentially, the main idea of a story. It's also, better known as like the moral of the story, kind of the lesson that you walked away with after you read something. If you ever watched any children's Disney movies or anything like that, you would definitely kind of leave with like the moral of the story. Right? Almost every movie, especially a children's movie, will have like a lesson, will have like a lesson in them, and that is essentially the theme of the story. Sometimes it is stated directly to the reader. Other times you have to kind of use context and clues and word imagery to kind of draw up that theme. So today I hope to kind of go over a couple of those, and also I'm going to practice one of the passages from like one of the GED packets in the analyzing themes section, and so we're going to kind of go over that as well, and that one uses a graph. So some of the things that you can kind of think about and that would help you find a theme would be you could ask these questions. So what is the story about? That would be like the plot. In order to understand the theme and the moral of the story, you're going to kind of want to first have a clear understanding of what the story is about. What is like the main point of the story? An example could be, my story is about a man who hunts down the men who were acquitted after they killed like his family. That's in some stories, and that could be something, or it could be how someone who was unemployed and struggling to make ends meet got a break, and then they turn their life around. Or the athlete who is never won a game, but all of a sudden had that really good point or shot in basketball, and he turned around for the whole team, and it's like at first you don't succeed, try again. So those are kind of some examples. The next question I would ask is, what is the meaning behind the story? This is usually an abstract result of someone's actions. It could be, what that person is doing. What does that mean? If someone's, a really nice person, if someone's donating, food to the poor, or if someone's being nice to one of their colleagues, like what does that say about the person? And that's kind of usually would help gather like facts and stuff for the moral of the story. And another one is 3 is, what is a lesson? This is a statement about the human condition. I don't know if you ever saw like Pursuit of Happiness with like Will Smith. It kind of is, he's gets his break, he's trying to make ends meet, he's a single father, makes a big break on Wall Street, and just kind of chronicles his journey to finding success and determination. And throughout the movie you kind of have themes of determination, hope, it's things like that. Okay, so I'm going to go to this one real quick. Okay, so some 12 common themes that you'll most likely see when you are reading something, whether it's, nonfiction, fiction, whether it's in a movie, whether it is, in a short story, a Disney movie, a movie that you see, like on screen. Some of the 12 common themes that you would see are So a man struggles against nature. A man, or it could be a woman in this case, man just as a general, struggles against societal pressures. Man struggles to understand spiritually. Crime doesn't pay. Overcoming adversity. You see this a lot in movies, how, the underdog, whether it's a boxer, whether it's, someone who is disadvantaged in society, and they overcome those obstacles to, turn their life around when it's, they're facing all these challenges. That could be an example of, overcoming adversity. And that would certainly be a theme that you would see. Friendship is dependent on sacrifice, is a give and take. Friendship is a really common one too. And again, when you see a lot of these themes, there could be more than one theme in a story. Friendship would go along with it, the importance of family. If you have a story with multiple characters and people, relationships, brothers, sisters, wives, husbands, a lot of times, the theme of family will be used. The yin and yang, this could mean, right once you have something figured out, another challenge arises, and you have to kind of, go back to the drawing board and figure out how to, come back from that. And then love, love can kind of conquer all. That's another one. And then death is part of a life cycle. So those are kind of some of the ones that just kind of gives you an understanding of like what is a theme and what could be possibly a theme, in a story. So this one, I'm going to kind of start off with just some like simpler, stories that you may or may not have heard of. A lot of these are some children's stories that, have a great example of having a theme in them. So this one I'm just going to kind of read quickly, and we're going to go over this one. A hare was, and this is the classic, sorry, I should introduce this one, the hare and the tortoise. So a hare was making fun of the tortoise one day for being so slow. Do you ever get anywhere? He asked, with a mocking laugh. Yes, replied the tortoise. I get there sooner than you think. I'll run you a race and prove it. The hare was much amused at the idea of running a race with the tortoise, but for the fun of the thing he agreed. So the fox, who had consented to the act as judge, marked the distance and started the runners off. The hare was soon far out of sight, and to make the tortoise feel very deeply how ridiculous it was for him to try to race a hare, he lay down beside the chorus to take a nap until the tortoise could catch up. The tortoise, meanwhile, kept going slowly but steadily, and after time passed the place where the hare was sleeping, but the hare slept on very peacefully. And when at last he did wake up, the tortoise was near the goal, and the hare now ran his swiftest. He could not overtake the tortoise in time. So kind of based on what we talked about in terms of, finding characters in the story and, finding the plot, what do you think, based off what you know about, a turtle and a hare, which is, a rabbit, we know that a tortoise is slow. We know turtles are slow, and we know a hare is fast. And so kind of in this story, the hare challenges a tortoise to a race. And kind of right off the bat, we know that the hare is a little cocky and, kind of confident and, thinks he's going to beat the tortoise, right then and there. He's going to, make it to the finish line, no problem. But the tortoise, knowing what he does and knowing his strategy, thinks like, hey, I'm going to be able to, beat this hare. So what we find out is that the hare, thinks that he has all day to, kind of take a nap, to rest, because it's going to take forever for the hare to catch up. But little does he know, the tortoise catches up. So what do you think, the moral of the story, or, the theme of it is, this is a common one, is, slow and steady wins the race. That's the theme of it. Because the tortoise took his time. The tortoise was not rushing, and he knew that his strategy was fine. And, you could really apply this to any kind of part of your life. If if there could be, I'm trying to think, any obstacle that you have in your life or any goal that you're trying to reach, someone who, goes to say they want to lose like a pound, 10 pounds or something, and they go work out every single day, but maybe like you're not a person who really ever worked out before, and maybe you're someone else who, wants to try to incorporate, working out, I guess, into your routine and into your lifestyle. You incorporate that. Maybe you go once or twice a week. Maybe you go 3 or 4 times a week the second week. Maybe, after a month, then you're going, 5 times a week. That person probably most likely would stick with the habit longer because they're incorporating and they're slowly becoming used to this. And it's one of those things is that, whether you're, looking for a promotion at work, whether you're trying to get really good at something, if you slowly but surely, if you kind of start, tackling that, then, you're gonna win. You're gonna like eventually catch up, and you're gonna actually end at the destination that you want. So it kind of doesn't even matter the speed. So long story short, that would be the theme of the tortoise and the hare. Second one we're gonna go over as an example. Anyone have any questions so far? So the second one would be the shepherd boy and the wolf. This is another classic one, that teaches another lesson, and we're going to kind of see if we can figure it out. I'm going to read this one here, and then we're going to dive in and go for it. So this is called The Shepherd Boy and the Wolf. A shepherd boy tended his master's sheep near a dark forest not far from the village. Soon he found life in the pasture very dull. All he could do to amuse himself was to talk to his dog and play the shepherd's pipe. One day he sat watching the sheep in the quiet forest and thinking what he would do should he see a wolf. He thought of a plan to amuse himself. His master had told him to call for help should a wolf attack the flock, and the villagers would drive it away. So now, though he had not seen anything that even looked like a wolf, he ran toward the village shouting at the top of his lungs, "Wolf, wolf!" As he expected, the villagers who heard the cry dropped their work and ran in great excitement to the pasture. But when they got there, they found the boy doubled up with laughter at the trick he had played at them. A few days later, the shepherd boy shouted again, while watching the sheep, "Wolf, wolf!" Again, the villagers ran to him, only to be laughed at again. Then one evening, as the sun was setting behind the forest and the shadows were creeping out over the pasture, a wolf really did spring up from under the brush and fall upon the sheep. In terror, the boy ran toward the village, shouting, "Wolf, wolf!" But though the villagers heard the cry, they did not run to help him as they did before. "He could not fool us again," they said. The wolf killed a great many of the boy's sheep and then slipped away into the forest. So this story is a common one. A common theme is, so the shepherd, the boy was looking after his boss's sheep essentially, and he was told that if he sees a wolf, which is very, that would kill sheep, to run to the village next door down the hill and say, "Wolf, wolf," and they would come to his rescue. Well, after the boy, played 2 jokes on them, they didn't take him seriously anymore. And so when there really was a wolf attacking, the sheep that he was supposed to be looking out after, he didn't get any help from the village. So based off that, after, what we see is lying, so after that, let's see, we'll go to, yes. Okay, let me see on this one here. So that would be, the boy cried wolf. If you lie, no matter the truth, everyone's always going to think of you as a liar. So that's the theme of the story. So I hope you're kind of seeing, you're drawing on inferences in terms of, the boy called for help twice. and he's playing a joke. The third time, he was telling the truth, but the previous 2 times, the village just now look at him as a liar. So if stuff like that is good to keep in mind by, using imagery, using inferences in terms of we knew he was lying, and then the truth came out and they didn't want to help him. So, and then one way is a good way to track themes in a story is to create like a T chart. So let me get a piece of paper here. Okay. So a T chart is you just draw like a T down the middle, and whatever story that you're reading, on one side you could have themes. Let me see if I can pull this up here. Okay, actually I'll write this up so it's easier. Let me see here. Themes, and then so pretend like this would be like a T. Let's see here. Oh, this isn't working. Okay. Okay, so I'll probably just draw it because it's probably easier. So a T, so you just do a T and then you put this word theme on one side of the column, and then on the other side you would put evidence, which is I kind of explain here. So one way to track themes is to create a T chart with one side dedicated to identifying a theme, and then the other side, on the other half of the piece of paper, you would, give supporting details. So I kind of did this with a well-known movie that you've probably seen, which would be, excuse me, The Lion King, okay? It is, obviously a very, very popular, Disney movie, and there's a lot of themes, but I picked 3. So some of the themes that I came up with, and, maybe you could come up with similar ones and even probably additional ones, since, there were so many great lessons, so many, moral of the story type, anecdotes in the actual movie. So the first one I came up with was Circle of Life. And what I came up with as evidence is, early on in Lion King, Mufasa explains to Simba, that his son, that lions aren't necessarily dominant just because they're predators. Just because they go after, a lot of animals in the, animal kingdom. Since they die, they become dirt, which grass grows from, which their prey feeds on. In fact, most creatures in the Lion King series seems to revolve around the circle of life, almost as like a religion. And so I thought, like, however, it is clear that lions do have some level of authority and are tasked with preserving the circle of life. So, you could think of it as like the food chain. The lions are at the top. They eat, other types of animals, deer, in the, in the wildlife, zebras and anything else that they can get their, teeth on. But the thing is that what Mufasa was trying to explain to Simba is that when you die, your body biodegrades into the earth, which then grows grass, which then the animals that keep them alive, that they have to feed on and kill, actually eat the grass. So you can kind of see it's a whole circle and a whole repetition. And then let's see. Okay. And the second one I came up with was family. So from the very beginning, you can tell, even just from the imagery of a movie, all the lions are together. You know that they're all family. So that's definitely an obvious theme that you can draw upon and use to, how is family come together in this movie? So the family of lions, live on Pride Rock in Africa. If I spelled Africa wrong. Africa. The story circles around a family of lions to avoid being screwed over by one of the very malicious family members, aka Scar. So throughout the movie, there's always, there's always competition within the family. And so there's always, you're always going to see conflict, and that is certainly evidence within family. All families have conflict to a point. So that's definitely one of them. And lastly would be friendship. Samba is a true friend who instills a realization that in Simba that life is not all about living a carefree yet selfish life. She definitely is trying to teach Simba that you have to also, be a friend and, be a shoulder to lean on to other people in your family. And that's when they need Simba to come back and, take over the den from Scar. So that's just kind of an overview. So lastly, for today's lesson, I'm going to kind of pull this up. Nope, that's not it. Oh, got it. Okay, cool. So what I am going off of is this section is called Chapter 7. This is also in the REA-GED, Analyzing Similar Themes and Topics. So I chose just one of the shorter ones. If any of you guys have any questions, please, we can go over more of these. But so this whole lesson here is teaching you, and what I hope to do with this example here is you want to draw comparisons, similarities to two types of text, and they could be either, in the same structure in a story, they could be in a graph, they could be in a movie, they could be in a word problem format. So this whole lesson, which I highly recommend, it kind of goes easiest to more difficult, would really come in handy, because this will give you a sense of reading comprehension. This will also help you analyze what you're reading, not even in terms of just themes, but of what the main plot of the story is, who the characters are involved. So we're going to go over this one. So what they're starting off is this one, which I'm going to pull back up in here because it's going to be easier to read since it's just focused. Okay, so for this one, we're going to compare a graph, and we're going to compare a short story. So for the first one will be a short story, which I'm presenting. It says, read the following excerpt from William Osler's The Student Life, and the graph that follows about unemployment, which will come next in the next slide. So I'll just go ahead and read this. The hardest conviction to get in the mind of a beginner is that education upon which he is engaged is not a college course, not a medical course, but a life course, for which the work of a few years under teachers is but preparation. So I'm going to stop there, and we're going to go over that sentence. So what do you think that first sentence is about? What are some of the things that we mentioned? They mentioned college course. And these are clues that you're going to want to use to kind of then tie in as you continue reading. College course, medical course, life course, and education. And he uses the word teachers. So within that, you can already see that, we're talking about education, we're talking about school of some sort. And right then and there, the reader makes it known that education, education isn't just what is being engaged in the college course. It's not what you learn in a medical course. It's not what you're learning right in front of a teacher. But the work of a few years under the supervision of a teacher, say you're in high school, for example, that 4 years under a teacher's supervision prepares you for what? The life course. And so I'm going to continue reading. Whether you will falter and fail in the race, or whether you will be faithful to the end, depends on the training before the start. And on your staying powers, points upon which I need not enlarge. And this is kind of like English that he's trying to really use a lot of fancy sentence structure. But really what he's saying is, it's not just what you're learning in the classroom. The stuff in the classroom is going to prepare you for when you go out in the real world, and which is anything that whatever course that you take, whether it's just these literacy or anything else, like that's going to prepare you for what you learn and what you need to succeed, when you go out in the field. So I'll continue reading. You can all become good students. A few may become great students. And now and again, one of you will be found who does easily and well what others cannot do at all, or very badly, which is John Frere's excellent definition of a genius. So, and then we're going to go over here. And let me see here. Okay. And then this one here is we're going to the unemployment rate. So each of these little squiggly, kind of like one of those like lines on a heart monitor, each one represents something else. So what I'm circling, like circling with my mouse here, if you can see it, that one would be unemployment rate for people who have a bachelor's degree and higher and who are also 25 years and older. So and then the second one, which is a lower one, this is unemployment rate for high school graduates with no college degree and who are also 25 years and older. So right then and there, you want to make sure before you kind of start thinking, oh my God, this graph, what is it about? Try to pick out some clues of what this, what the graph is trying to tell you. So we know at the bottom here, the shaded areas indicate US recessions. So there was a US recession in 2008, which is this one here. There's a US recession, I want to say, in the early 2000s. And there's another one, 1991, 1992 time. So based off that, you're going to want to look at where these lines are in comparison to the bars. Okay, and the question that we're going to want to keep in mind here is drawing comparisons from the two texts or pieces of information, which would be the graph in this case, and then that little short excerpt. What parallel can you draw between education and unemployment based on these two information? The quality of education impacts the quality of job one will land after finishing school. Education has no bearing on the likelihood of a career. Without proper education, one is not equipped for life or the workforce. Recessions impact education. So, let me go back down here. So, based off that, what do you think? So, we can process of elimination. The text that we read, they never really talked about, the quality of the education that you get would be impacting the quality of your job. They just talked about a classroom setting. B, education has no bearing on the likelihood of a career. This graph doesn't mention, how easy it was for someone to get a job after they got the degree, or if someone who, is a high school graduate has a job. C, without a proper education, one is not equipped for the life or workforce, which, if you see for that, there's a higher unemployment rate among those who have a bachelor's degree, and the recessions impact education. So the correct answer is C. And in order to answer this question, you will need to find the parallel between the information presented in both works. So the paragraph encourages students to become the best students they can because education is necessary for life, which he does mention that here. He says, the education upon which someone is engaged in college course, not a medical course, but a life course, that's really going to prepare you for, life ahead. And then, so the graph then shows how much education matters in terms of a person's employability. Because of this, you should draw the conclusion C from your own personal experience. So, and we did say, so while A may be true, it's not supported by either information, which we covered, while C is. B is actually negated by both pieces of information. And again, Though D may be true, it is not information that is explicitly supported by both the text and the graph. So just going to go back to that graph again. So you can tell the ones who don't have a college education, but who are still 25 years or older, they're falling higher up on this chart here in terms of the percentage of those who are unemployed. So that's the unemployment rate. So the unemployment rate is higher for those without the bachelor's degree. The ones who have the bachelor's degree were able to secure better paying jobs during the recession. And so that would be this lower one right here. So you can kind of see the percentage would be like 4% in the early 2000s, and this percentage skyrockets for those, you know, in that same time in the recession, but they don't have the bachelor's degree. So that's kind of, you know, that's how you would just kind of talk it out, and that's how I kind of go about graphs. And as it can kind of be confusing, but you just kind of want to just look at all the words that they provide to you and figure out what this means. You know, percentage, that's how we knew that's the percentage of the unemployment rate. And we knew at the bottom here, that would be, you know, the employment years. So I don't think there's anyone on here that would have any questions that I'm seeing, but yeah, so I'm going to go back to this here. Again, just to recap before I end here, is always figure out what the story is about. Always ask yourself, what does it mean behind the story? And what is a lesson to be learned? And then there you can find themes. And, you know, it's always good to have a pen and paper handy while you're doing this, because, you know, it's good to take notes. It's good to kind of cross back. And as you write more notes while you're reading, you'll be able to identify the themes, and you'll kind of be able to look at it and be like, oh, wow, so that's a reoccurring theme. Or, you know, if you take each sentence, what does it mean? So anyways, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.